Blog Talk Radio.
Always look up, never give up, and you will reach your goals. You're important, you're more than enough. And here she is, your host for Rolling with the Diva, Sabrina Williams. Thank you.
What's up, people in Las Vegas, Nevada, and around the world, and in Germany, and in where else are people telling me that they're listening from? I forgot. I think it was Sweden. Hello, people from Sweden. And all my gaming buddies on GLW and Age of Kings. It's a happy Wednesday afternoon. It's 4 o'clock, and today we're going to talk about prison incarceration and what is it going to take for all of our states to change. I have on the line with me today, we have a special guest. She's going to talk about her state a little bit. As soon as I turn the phone the right way for her so I can see her number. Miss Christy, are you there?
I am.
How are you today?
Hello. I'm doing great. And you?
I'm doing awesome. Welcome to Rolling with the Diva. Thank you for having us on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on and for bringing attention to now that Oklahoma has, it's not even a trophy that poor Oklahoma has, that shouldn't even be like a good thing, but they are actually, in the United States, they are number one for incarceration. However, interesting fact that we just found out yesterday when we were researching, that does not include the other parts of Puerto Rico and two other places, and I forgot where they were, because then Oklahoma would be considered a baby to consider to those people. But today we're just talking about Oklahoma in the United States. Other parts are still part of the U.S. treaty, but we're just basing on us. So, Miss Christy, tell everybody where you're calling from, a little about yourself, and if you want to share what your business is, that's great to give yourself a own shout out, and then we'll get rolling.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm calling from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I have my own investigation firm. I'm a private investigator licensed with the state of Oklahoma, and I work all throughout the state of Oklahoma. And I have a full-service investigation agency here and been doing that for about 7 years. And the name, I guess you want to know the name of my business, right? Tulsa Private Investigation.
We do.
Yep. So Tulsa Private Investigation out of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
All right. Well, we're going to get started. On June 9th, 2018, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin gives a pin. So this is from the Times. Let me see if I can say that right. I'm just going to spell it Picagyme. Gives a pin to Miss Tara Kunhn of Tulsa, the state's Women Recovery Program, as she signs public safety legislation designed to reduce the state's prison population at the state capitol in Oklahoma City, and this wasn't on June, it was on April 26, 2018. The Tulsa, Oklahoma now has the highest incarceration rate in the United States, unseating Louisiana as number one in the country. According to the new study, this is in June 2018, Oklahoma's incarceration rate is 1,779 per 100,000 people, with Louisiana at 1,052 per 100,000. So what's the problem with Oklahoma? Why are so many people in prison, and why, and what's going on, and how are they going to change that? Because it has a lot to do with what happened with Louisiana we'll talk about later. But we're going to let Christy go ahead and talk about why she is so passionate about her state and what she would like to see changed.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's an easy answer or there's just one right answer. I think that it's taken a while for us to get in this position, and it's going to take a little undoing. One issue that I see that is really a huge issue is that Oklahoma ranks so poorly in education. And it's something that has been a pretty hot topic over the last several months. I know that some of you probably watched, even on the national news, we got a lot of coverage for all the teachers out here fighting for better pay and better funding for schools. And so when you're ranked 50th in education and you're ranked first in number of people incarcerated, there's something about that's problematic. The other issue that we have is that we have a real issue with mental health in the state of Oklahoma. We're not doing justice getting folks with mental health issues the right kind of treatment, and that's something that definitely has to be addressed. I believe that the statistic is, I think we're 46th in funding for mental health in the state of Oklahoma, or in the nation. So 46 in funding for mental health and addiction programs. So when you start looking at those two statistics, that
Oklahoma actually has a C+ rating for mental health versus, let me get to the right page here, because I looked up all the states by grades that they give them. And in Oklahoma, yes, they are struggling. But if you look at Alaska, who has a grade of F, and let's just read how that they rank Alaska based on their mental health, and then I'll read you what they have about Oklahoma. You're absolutely right. One of the things before I read that is what the correlation is when you have a high rate of uneducation, mental health, and substance abuse, especially with mental health. They're saying now that the prison is becoming a housing for mental health. So we're going to have to get away from that, and we can't do that. But on the other hand, Louisiana, what they did in their part of the law that she signed into fruition now is that they changed their laws for some parts of drugs. Instead of them considered felonies, they're now considered misdemeanors. Is that decreasing the population? Not right now, because it's going to take a while.
Well, and that's and that's happening in Oklahoma too. They are changing some of those laws as well, and we have new legislation.
No, that was what I was saying was based on Oklahoma. That she's the governor. That was one of the laws that they actually have signed. And now just like with Louisiana, it's going to take them time for them to actually go back and figure out who now is going to be a misdemeanor versus if it was a felony. That'll take down the numbers, but that'll take time.
But even lowering those sentences or making those crimes a lesser sentence is not going to change the fact that people are mentally ill, and it's not going to help. We've got to treat people with mental illness, and we've got to give them resources, and that's where the lack is. We've really got to focus on not just so we don't incarcerate as many people, but they're still out there and still need help. We have the second highest rate of mental illness and addiction in Oklahoma, like I said earlier, and that's really problematic. Our biggest housing for people with mental illness in Oklahoma are, I think, Tulsa County Jail and the Oklahoma City Jail. We used to have mental illness facilities and hospitals in Oklahoma, and there's hardly any of those left. And so now we just house people in prisons and county jail, and and that's not going to suffice as treatment.
Well, and you're right. So in Alaska, the grade F is considered this. In Alaska, in April 2017, Alaska had 10 beds for forensic patients at the Alaskan Psychiatric Institute, one of the lowest number of beds per 100,000 population in the state. Now, if we go to, hold on, let me move over to you guys, Oklahoma. You guys are on page 35. Or if we look at Arizona with a grade C, the bed count continues to go up.
Right.
But if we go to Oklahoma again, and I understand that your state is still struggling, but if we look at, I think we need to look at some of the states like California. California has 4,412 dedicated forensic beds as of April 2017. When these statistics are done, so people understand, like when we do statistics and we report for foster care, we're reporting 1 year back of who we report to. So those numbers may reflect different, but those stats may not necessarily be out. But that's a cry different. Now, if we look at, I'm going to take it to Oregon, page 35, to Oklahoma. And I really am not seeing anybody with a A right here. Anybody.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing is that it's mental illness, and then you also have the issue of addiction, because there's, I think this I'm reading right here, there's between 700,000 and 950,000 Oklahomans that suffer from mental illness and or addiction. And so 65% of addicts that go through the Oklahoma Department of Corrections don't get substance abuse treatment. Yet the number one and number two reason people are arrested in the state of Oklahoma is for possession or intent to distribute. So we're arresting people.
Is that intent to distribute? Is that a mental illness or a self-choice?
That's a choice.
Okay, so
that's a choice. That's a
yeah.
choice. But I mean, it's often. I mean, just what I've seen in my lifetime. You start using drugs, and then you have to pay for your habit, and then the next step is you're selling drugs. And so, maybe if we could start with education. Let's educate our kids. Let's give them better options. Let's teach them healthy choices. And then maybe they wouldn't be using drugs, and then they wouldn't need to find a way to buy the drugs, which would cause them to be more tempted to sell the drugs. And so it's just all...
Those are good points, but one of the things that let's go back to mental health, and then we'll come back to the education.
Sure,
one thing that I've seen, and I've worked in the field for over 30-some years, when it comes to addictions, and it's called a dual diagnosis, in order to diagnose somebody with a mental illness and an addiction, those people have to be willing to undergo the detox. Now, a lot. Now, I don't know about Oklahoma. I'm not in Oklahoma, but I know for sure here in Las Vegas and in California, when people are put through these programs such as oh my goodness, Salvation Army, some of the, I'll name some other ones in a few minutes, but when some of the people who are put through these are refusing to submit to the program's rule, policies, and procedures, as I say. So when you don't submit to those policies and procedures, then you do end up staying on the street. You do end up becoming what we call a number because you're not willing to do that. So we need to take that into account, because I know for a fact that some people, yes, we can go now back to education, but I think for education, I'm just going to say this, and nothing against brick and mortar school or public schools. People need to go to homeschooling. That's it. It's done. Because unfortunately, teachers aren't going to get the money they need in some states. And some states have shown. California took a big stand on that years ago. And then the schools decided that they didn't like that, because you have to understand, the schools get a certain amount of money for each child being there after a certain amount of time. If your child is withdrawn from those schools, then the school does not get those federal dollars. So some parents, and I understand some of the parents in Oklahoma may not have those resources, or may not be themselves educated. So they think that they can't educate their own children. But that's something that all states need to start considering, and especially with some of the shootings.
Yeah, so that, I mean, it's an interesting theory, because I think that homeschooling's great when the parents are dedicated to homeschooling. Right. But if the parents aren't dedicated, then the kids are, they're actually probably worse off than going to a school that's maybe not properly funded. And because I know in Oklahoma, 7 out of 10 children who have parents who are incarcerated are going to be incarcerated themselves. So if we have parents out there that are, just out of prison, or they're trying to transition, that's really not the person that might be the best to educate a child. But then I know people that are very successful at homeschooling their children, and I did it for a couple of years. I'm married to a guy that taught high school for 20 years at a great school in Oklahoma, and but I had one child that just I knew would do better being homeschooled for a couple of years. So I'm a fan, but the parents have to be really dedicated to their kids' education, and that's what my concern is, especially in areas where parents are impoverished and struggling anyway.
And I get that. And sometimes, there's, being that there's relatives, there's the school district actually they have homeschooling programs that they can help the kids with, that the kids don't have to be technically homeschooled by their parents, but they can work with them at their levels. So I think the point is, what I'm hearing you say is that however it gets worked out, the kids need to start at a level of being educated so that they don't continue to repeat a pattern that their parents repeated. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and whether that's in a traditional school structure or homeschooling, or that support from the community, whatever that looks like, that's what we need to focus on. We need to be teaching our kids a better way, because what's happening now is not acceptable.
And so how would you say that the community itself can get involved in helping with that? Even though some of those people are not the parents of those children, how would you see your community, your section of your city or town getting involved with that?
I think we have to not look at these issues as being reactive, but we need to be proactive. We need to, all step up and say, hey, what can we do to affect change? What can I do in my neighborhood, in my community, in my, I live in a suburb outside of Tulsa. What can I do in my area? What can I do here to make this better? We've got to work on our marriages. Oklahoma's number 3 in the United States for divorce. When you have broken families and you have people, fighting over their kids in the family court system, and trying to work through those challenges, and the kids sometimes don't have the stability that they need, and so we've just got to do better with our relationships. We've got to be a stronger community and help our kids make better choices.
And sometimes, no matter, and this is one of the things that I always say to people, and I've seen it myself, I've seen it with my own kids, sometimes no matter what, you could be the best parent, you need to understand that kids will make choices as adults, and adults make choices. There are very few mental illnesses, except major ones like schizophrenia or PTSD, that doesn't take, and sometimes you can take away the element of responsibility for that person, but a lot of times people are mixing. And unfortunately, I understand that this is what you have to do to survive because you have substances and everything, but sometimes, again, when people have to be willing to want the help. There's a great sect here in Nevada that people are now realizing, hey, I'm going to need to break the cycle because my kids are repeating that, because I'm in a shelter, they're in a shelter. I get into issues
Right.
with domestic violence. I get into having 6 or 7 kids out of wedlock and so on, or identifying my kids identifying with 5 different fathers, or a father for every child. So there are the community itself, and this is one of the things that I sit and talk with people about. The community itself needs to come up with one thing that they would like to focus on, and get your community leaders involved. Start with the commissioners, and you know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You start with your commissioners, and from there you go on to build these communities and subgroups so that you can help these kids, because sometimes parents, and I have seen parents know that they are doing bad and maybe they can't educate their children, but if there's a group of people out there who want to help and support them, they will send their kids on. Sometimes parents are lost, as you indicated, when they don't have the support system or people willing to step up. And I understand, because some people say, well, it's not my problem, I've already established my life. But at the end of the day, it's all our problems.
But it becomes everybody's problem when you're
Exactly.
ranked number 1 in the United States for incarceration. We've got, in Oklahoma, we've got to really, like I said, work on repairing the family structure, and we've got to work on our relationship issues. We're always in the top 5 for, death by domestic violence, and top 2 or 3 for domestic violence. So we've got a lack of respect for marriage and for the role in marriage, and we've held the number 1 position for incarcerating women for over 25 years, and not having mothers in the home to be there with their children has just a terrible effect. I mean, when you look at that statistic, there's really no surprise that we are where we are. 25 years. So,
yeah, but you also
I
have
think
a whole. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. It can wait.
No, I just think that it just has such a negative effect. I think that when you don't have parents that have relationships with their children, when they have to go see their parents, they only get to see them, on visitation. That becomes normal to them. Prison becomes normal to them. So it's not a surprise that 7 out of 10 follow in their parents' footsteps. That's what's familiar to them, and so whatever it takes to make that number decrease has got to be a focus in Oklahoma.
And I think it has to be a focus because behind you guys is still, we can just go down the list, Louisiana, Oregon, go on down the list. And the bottom line is there's too many people incarcerated, some for mental illness, some for crimes that they will never get out. But I think the bottom line is, let's talk about what you're saying is a family structure for marriage. And I hear you saying that it appears that you're a traditionally based marriage, and that you, I don't know your Christian or religious background, but it appears that you have a lot of respect for that of marriage. Now, times have changed. A lot of people see marriage as a different thing. See, relationships are a different thing. So how do we work on bringing that together? So, because sometimes we may not be able to go back to that traditional thing of
no,
okay.
and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the adults that are in the home raising the children have to be. They need to have healthy relationships. I don't care if it's 2 women or 2 men or a woman and a man. That's a whole other topic. But what I'm saying is the parents in the home need to respect each other. They need to show each other respect so that their kids see that. And again, it's not. It's about it's about showing kids how to behave and how to treat other people. It's just a perpetuation of a negative culture. I know several same-sex couples that are fantastic parents, and we've got an issue right now with whether Oklahoma is going to let same-sex parents foster kids, and we're short on foster homes. And, I think that what matters is if they're healthy, responsible adults, not.
But I think also one of the things, again, we go back to the churches. No matter what, and you're talking, and you keep hitting that key thing, and it's really important that people understand is that people, if we want healthy relationships in it, whether it's a business, whether it's a church, whether it's a counseling center, need to step up and start inundating the community with these classes. And maybe they can't get them they don't. And a lot of times it's based on a money thing, but there's so many grants that can be written for these kind of things. There are many grants that can be written for domestic violence teaching classes. Boys Town, of which started way back in this, and if anybody understands the movie Father Flannery, that's where Boys Town has a program they'll bring to any state, and they will actually teach that program for free. So it takes people reaching out, and leaders like you of your community and your husband and other people who understand what's going on and who are empowered by that, and also just saying, hey, you know what, we can do this. There's sometimes catching somebody's eye. Here's a class. Family active, or I'll just use the term that I like, family reconnection classes. Here, there's billboards that can be posted. People drive. They will respond to those things. But we as a community, we have to be willing to do it. And we just, and no matter what state we're in, and I know Oklahoma right now, unfortunately, has the #1 trophy for that. That's just sad. It's nothing to be, that just makes me sad that it's like that, and that women are incarcerated, and that kids are, there's so many dynamics, because when a mother or a father is incarcerated, this is the impact. If the kid can't go to a relative, or they can't find a fictive kin, then they are going to go into the foster care system. But understand, with a relative, that relative still has to be able to take care of them and finance, and be able to finance that. That's another factor that the states, actually one of the things that the states need to just get up off and do. This has been my whole thing the whole 39 years in foster care. If there's family members or relatives or friends of those family that actually know that child, that's willing to take care of them, stop with these background checks that are so out of control because a person may have had one criminal thing. Forego those and let that child live with them, because I don't think people realize, and we know, and I know, that when every time a child is moved from to another home, back and forth, it causes a trauma and sets up a reactive attachment disorder that can really impact that child and build trust issues. And some of those trust issues can go along with, I'm going to use substance abuse, I'm going to drink alcohol, and as you said earlier, Christy, I'm going to need to fund that, and the cycle repeats. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I think that, what's happening is they're medicating a lot of hurt in their heart, and then you've got, I can't remember the statistic right off the top of my head, but it's pretty high. It's over 50% of foster kids end up in the prison system, so, we've got to do better there, and we've got to do better as a church, too. I think that, we've got a church on every corner in Oklahoma, and that's a great thing. We've got to start loving people better. We've got to start showing them, kindness and forgiveness and support. Our churches need to be supportive of our community, and it needs to be a focus. We need to focus on people's strengths and on their talents, and we need to, focus on love instead of focus on, maybe what they've been through in the past, and help, build them up and elevate them and show them that, their community loves and supports them and wants them to make healthy choices for, themselves and their families. And I think that, we can do that. And Oklahoma has some really, really great nonprofits that help women that, have been abused, and help, they help families that have been through, all these difficult situations. The the incarceration, people that have been incarcerated and people that have mental illness. I will say that I've been really fortunate to meet a lot of people that, take their own time to go out and really try to help and make a difference in the community. And so you see that here, and I guess that is, part of the silver lining. There are people that do understand that it's a problem, but that, when you talk about educating people, we're not just, you can't just focus on, education in school. Yeah, we need to make sure that, that we work on that issue. It's a big issue in Oklahoma, but we also have to educate, adults in the state and our communities on, where we're lacking and where people can step up and make a difference. Because I think a lot of people don't understand why so many people are incarcerated. If people understood, why so many people were incarcerated, they may have a different take on incarceration and what they could do to maybe affect some change.
Right, and one of the places that we have that I looked up earlier during the week is domestic violence and sexual assault, because that's becoming a major, big thing where it's now just they're starting to realize domestic violence, especially in PTSD, are correlated, especially with kids who have been sex trafficking or women, and it's also men. And they are located at 8524 Southwestern, number 111, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73139 is their area code, their state code. Okay, I'm lost here. Sorry. And their phone number is 405-524-0700. But also in any state, I don't think a lot of people realize this, if you're listening to the show, 211 in any area can give you phone numbers for services and let you know whether it's low budget counseling or no budget, or for free, or if you can attend a group. One of the most important things that I really like about the churches that I see out here that really want to impact their community is they actually go out where the homeless are and they bring services to the homeless. They don't expect the homeless to get over across town. They bring that to them. They start building friendships, and they just do this non-judgmental, because we can't take away the past, but we sure can impact you in the future. And I'm really gonna call out a lot of churches, because I really believe that there's some good churches, and I believe that some churches need to get up off their butts and stop taking tithes and sitting on $100 million a year tithes, and that are free tax, and just don't do anything for your community. Because I believe that it starts with churches. I know that we have the government, I know we have everything, but I'm old school. And Jesus literally came here, and that's the reason he got on the cross for us. And if we read it, nobody wants to hear that from me, too bad. You need to do your job, because that's what the churches are for. We're not here to sit in silver linings and drive nice cars and sit up here and just hope that those people get better. And when they do come to our church, they don't come back because you've judged them. And that's a true statement, and you guys need to get off your butts and start, because you know what, we can't just keep saying the government, because when you look back through history, you can see some of the people like Christy are talking about, who were just individual people who did extraordinary things. And until we get back there, it doesn't matter how many people we have in prison in any state. If we as a community don't start stepping up, there's not, because the government is just the government. They're here to keep us in check and to monitor us. That's it. It's nothing else, nothing more. They will help when they can, if they're forced, and if they have to. Nothing personal. So that's my little take on that. So.
Well, I agree, and I think that I think you're right. I mean, Jesus wasn't sitting somewhere once a week just listening to a message, and he was out in the community. He was going to places that other people didn't want to go, and and I think that that's the example that we have to live by. And I'll tell you, there's some churches that just have great ministries here for the homeless, and I know that once a week we have a bunch of churches that get together downtown Tulsa for an event called Nightlife, and they set up a whole. It's really neat. They provide food, clothing, dog food. They clothes. They cut people's hair for free. They pray over them. They wash their feet. It's really amazing. I've got a really good friend, Ty Griffin, here in Tulsa, who runs a charity called Tango Tab, and I think last month they made over 20,000 sandwiches for the homeless, and they do that once a month. And there's a church that I'm familiar with, God Shining Light Church, and they have a great prison ministry here in Oklahoma, and they help people transition out of prison. I think the guy that is a pastor of that church is named Dixie Pebworth, and so. Yeah, we have some really, really great community programs, and I think it does start with the community. We have to take responsibility, but we also, have to hold our state officials and legislature accountable too. We have to make sure that they're representing us and spending our money that we pay in taxes the way that we want it spent. I could go off on a tangent about private prisons and.
Let me help you. When a senator, and this is the God's honest truth, when you are sitting on over $250,000 a year, you pay nothing, and you have the best medical insurance in the world, the
right.
best dental, as in you are the president of the United States, who still has that same, and then you go around and you get elected, and I promise and I swear and hold my hand up that I'm going to do all these great things for you, and then you get in office and you do a bait and switch. What we should be able to do is vote your happy butt right on out, because right now what's going on is, and I'm a Republican, but I'm not for a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, because it's out of control. It's not what I elected for, and what I'm not happy with, and I'm happy to say that. Some people may disagree. Some might think it's going great, and to me, great. That's your personal opinion, but I think that we are electing people and they're doing bait and switch. And then we don't do anything about them. No, we need to get up. We need to vote.
We keep voting the same people in, right?
Yes, exactly. Stop it.
We keep voting. We've got to get some term limits. We've got to get some term limits and hold people accountable. And that's the great thing about America. We don't all have to believe the same or think the same, and we have the ability to make our own choices and parties and politicians, and but we really have got a problem with lobbyists in the United States. Again, a whole other can of worms. But the prisons have huge lobbyists. I read a statistic earlier where I believe they've spent like $35 or $40 million since the early '90s on lobbying for private prisons, and
because private prisons are what? They're like a business. They're business. You get profit from that. Your name doesn't have to name. You could be a silent partner, and you're absolutely right. So if it's going to benefit
so what's happening with go ahead.
No.
Well, what's happening with those is they're not making policy because of the public's well-being. They're making policy because it affects their profit. Most prisons have what they call a bed mandate, and the bed mandate basically says that the state is required to fill 90 to 100% of the prison beds, and if they don't, then the taxpayers have to make up the difference. So you ask, well, why are people being incarcerated for these low-level crimes and these nonviolent offenses, which in Oklahoma 3/4 of the people that are incarcerated for nonviolent offenses? They've got a bed mandate at these state prisons that are privately owned. So we've got the Department of Corrections in Oklahoma. Let me just tell you this one other thing. The Department of Corrections in Oklahoma requested $800 million for 2 more prisons in Oklahoma, and I'm just thinking, if we took that $800 million and put it into mental health care, addiction recovery, and education, what would that look like?
And you know what I think, too? I think that they're going to have to start doing, especially what California is doing as far as the prisons, because you have to understand, release a person from prison, if they're not, they go to a halfway house, but if that halfway house is not like a federal mandated monitoring program where it has guidelines to help that person get back on track, then these people are just going to be repeat offenders within 6 months. So we need those halfway houses to be also known as education houses, how we can help them, the people get back into school, whether it's school. Because also I did a show, I think it was on Monday, on dyslexia. A lot of people, and this goes back to your thing on education, a lot of people who are not reading and writing are dyslexic in prison, and they get caught up in that cycle. And
right, I listened to that show. It was a really good show, by the way, and yeah, I actually listened to it today. But I will tell you that one of the problems that we have with halfway houses is a lot of them are owned by those same giant corporations that own the private prisons. So you have to ask yourself: are these people wanting people to be released back into society to be productive citizens, or are they wanting them to cycle back into prison? Because, we let people, end up in prison for whatever, say it's, we'll take number 1 and 2, possession and intent to distribute. You've got a felony now. And then, you go to a halfway house and you're trying to find a job, and it's difficult now because you have a felony. Those people that are discharged from prison on average owe $10,000 in debt to the state. So you get a $10,000 bill the day you step out of the prison. You go to a halfway house that, and I'm not saying maybe they have great, halfway house programs that it's not really my wheelhouse. I don't know. I just know that, a number of them are owned by the same companies. But, you're transitioning people back into the community, but then they can't get employment because of their felony status, and sometimes their misdemeanor status. And so they're out now. Once they, transition past the halfway house and they're back into society and they're trying to integrate back into society, they have $10,000 to start, that they have to pay back, and on average, and then, then they have difficulty finding a job that pays or a job at all because of their felony. And they, a lot of times get frustrated. They feel disheartened, and then they, start taking up poor behavior again. They get back on chemicals. They start doing things that they're not supposed to do because they're not sure how else to pay for their expenses. And so there's got to be a better transition. There's just got to be. One of
the things is for them, you're exactly right, is that, their mind starts playing tricks on them. And I forget the movie, but it was a movie. It wasn't The Green Mile, but it was Morgan Freeman was in that movie, and one of the guys got released from prison, and he ended up killing himself because it was too hard to adjust to society. And some people go back to prison because at least you have those 3 meals, a hot and a cot, as they say. And I think today, I appreciate Christy coming on the air and just talking about her state. She's not trying to bring up saying, oh, my God, we're so happy we're, number 1 in crime or our prison rates or women in prison. But we're saying is we need to figure it out and do better. And how can we do better? And I think today you heard her and myself, suggest things, the community, we really, our legislators, the senators, our representatives, we really need to check them. It seems and it appears to me, I don't know about you, Christy, but as soon as they get in office, it's almost like they're like teenagers, and they're going to do what they want until they get reined in. It's like, oh, too bad for you. You elected me. And until we start saying, and really start recalling and holding people really accountable and making those calls, it's going to keep happening. They're rogue. I mean, I've never seen a set. And like I said, I'm Republican, proud to be Republican. No, I am not happy with what my president is doing. I have respect because he's in office, but what he's doing right now is not what I expected, and it's out of control right now. All we're doing is playing games in office, and people are just not, we're not getting anything done. We spend more time in this administration arguing over some of the stupidest crap I've ever seen in my life than we're helping. Are getting worse and worse and worse. And so we need to do better there. And it's our obligation as humans, to literally, if you don't vote, then you can't complain. If you don't call up your senator or your commissioner, and it starts with the commissioner sometimes, because believe me, these commissioners get paid. I'm running for a commissioner. We get paid. We're held accountable for our actions. And so if you want to go higher up as a commissioner, you'll start doing things right. Christy, before we go, please, because you know what, you really need to go create your own radio show.
I've got a podcast in the works, actually. I've got a podcast in the works.
Good for you, because you have, I'm going to tell you, I am so proud of you. That's why today I just was talking as if you were doing the interview. You have great stats. I cannot dispute them because you had sent them to me before, and I found other ones. But I'm just impressed with your ability to give the right information, and I am just in awe of you of that, because today people put out so much false information, and people don't check it. And I'm very impressed in your compassion and love for your community. I really hope that you do get on the air, and please let me know when, because I will just shout you out all the time. And I've watched you for some of the cases that you've done. You're a tremendous investigator, and Oklahoma should be proud to have you. I know I was almost about to call you up a couple of times when I was catfished. So Call me up if you're being catfished for sure. And yes, the podcast is in the works, and we're going to touch on a lot of issues that are important to people. We're going to talk about relationships and all kinds of issues that affect all of us. Fraud, we all have had those instances where we felt like people were ripping us off, and I think that we're going to be covering some missing persons cases and some cold cases. It's all in the works. So I'm really excited about it, and I've enjoyed talking to you. I feel like I'm just talking on the phone to a friend, honestly. And I think I am, actually. You know what, thank you. And I hope, because I'm having my hip surgery on August 13th, just so everybody knows, so I might be off the air for a week, or maybe they'll let me broadcast from the hospital. But after that, I'm back on the road to travel, and I'll be visiting Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, I don't think a lot of people know, but it has a deep history for the United States, and some great things and people have come out of Oklahoma. And of course, just don't let me start saying
the statistics don't look good when we sit here and read them off, but, I've spent most of my life in Oklahoma. I was born and raised, moved away for a little while, and came back. And I'll tell you what, it is a beautiful state. It is a friendly state. It has a great person. Tulsa, I'm a Tulsa, native, and I love Tulsa. Tulsa's got a great personality. We've got so much history. We've got some of the most beautiful lakes. I think we have more fresh water. We have more shoreline than any other state. We have tons and tons of lakes, and it's just a beautiful place. And if you come down, then you let me know in advance, and we'll make plans. And I would love to be your tour guide. So.
You're an investigator, so I'm gonna hang with you so I'm protected. I'm gonna tell you though,
right.
I'm gonna be honest. I've really been researching because I've had some offers to go to Alaska, and one of the things we talk about statistics, I had to really come to terms with. Alaska has 112 men to 109 women, but the rape of women in Alaska, the state, is awful. It's out of control. Mm. And so statistic-wise, I'm like, you know what, let me look at these offers. But one thing I do want, the positive that has come out of Oklahoma, you are being shy. Why don't you tell everybody about your son? in his band?
Yeah, he's so talented, that boy. He just played he did a 2-week tour. He has a band called Neo Romantics, and boy, they're just growing leaps and bounds right now, and it's great music. He's got a beautiful voice. They played all the way from Oklahoma to Canada and back. They're playing a big festival in Missouri tonight, and then I'll get to see him tomorrow. But I don't think I'm allowed to say anything yet, but I think that they were offered a pretty sweet deal today for their band, and so I'm really proud of them. I believe what they were told is that they were one of the hardest working bands that was around, and we've heard that twice in the last 2 months, that they've gotten accolades for just how hard they work, how talented they are, and how relentless they pursue their goals. And so, boy, that makes them all proud. And I've got a daughter who's a sweetheart and a very talented kid too, and she's got her own business too, and so yeah, so good kids, and I'm a lucky gal.
What is your daughter's business that she does?
Yeah, she doesn't own the business, but she's a stylist. She's a hairstylist, and she's just amazingly talented. She has been doing it for a couple of years and has a great clientele, and she's getting married in a couple of months to the nicest guy in the whole world, who also happens to be the drummer for my son's band. And he's a booking agent here in Oklahoma, and he's made quite a success of that. So we're real proud of him, and we're real proud of all of them. They're just really, really good adult kids.
And you know what that is saying? And I know we were talking about the Oklahoma, some of the prisons, but look at that. When a parent puts in their child and has belief, children's going to be successful. Sometimes we just have to remember, because I have two sons, 20 and 18-year-old, and they're very successful. They work hard, they do hard, and it's an expectation that parents have of them. I expect that I would do good, and I expect my children to do good. So, Christy, you and your husband should be very proud.
That's right. That's right. Our goal is to raise healthy and happy adults, and both of my kiddos are that. Yeah, so go listen to Neo Romantics on the radio, and they're on all the major music networks. They're on Spotify and Apple Music and all the big ones. So, yep, go give them a listen.
And Christy, I'm going to tell you this because I love networking. Don't forget, once you do your podcast and you get your blog talk, don't forget to apply for Spotify and iHeart. All you got to need is just
okay. I sure will.
I mean, because I'm on Spotify. I'm on iHeartRadio with my own, and my next big thing is going to Sirius Radio. So you can do it, and I'm proud of you. Thank you for just coming on and blessing me. I'm telling you, and any man that's out there listening to, if you guys try to catfish me, you know who I'm calling right now. Not playing with y'all.
Yeah, don't try it. I've got her back. All you catfishers, and also when she comes to Oklahoma.
I'm going to tell you, I'm finishing up the book, but it is hilarious, but it is the truth about catfishing and coming to reality. But some of it is, we women know things, we just don't want to see them.
Oh, girl, I could tell you some stories. I don't know if you follow my business page or you're in my group. I've got a group on Facebook too. My business page is Spy Girl at Tulsa Private Investigation, and then I've got a Facebook group, The Real Spy Girl, and we talk about this stuff. We talk about being catfished, and we talk about all kinds of social issues, and boy, I could tell you, if you need some stories for your book, you just let me know.
You know what? Let me join the group, because I would love to introduce myself to people, but I also would love to hear their stories and give. Some people don't, but I would tell people, and I will share one of my stories that people will. When you look at me, you'll be like, no, not you. You could not have been fooled that crazy. And you know what? It does happen. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. It has happened to me 3 times, and finally I realized it's me on some of these things. I need to be more aware. So I write literally and tell people, these are things you need to look for. And you know what, women? We have a gut. And if you're not listening to your gut, then you just don't want to hear reality, the truth be told.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, we
so
know, and that's something I put in my advertising often, and we talk about trusting your gut instinct, but boy, some of these people are really talented at scamming people in the dating game, and you just have to be very, very careful. So I joke about it because sometimes, some of the scams are funny and they're obvious, but sometimes it's really serious, and sometimes it can be dangerous even. So, yep, it's always smart to trust your gut. I feel like that we could probably talk about a whole bunch of topics. you and I. So I thank you. Thank you so much for. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, and it's been mine. And invite me to your group because I love that. I just like learning, and I'm like, you one day did. I saw something where you talked about a cold case, and I went and looked up cold cases for Nevada. And I'm like, okay, I better stop. Because I'm like, really? That was just interesting to me. I think I got a little nervous because I was like, okay. But then I was like, should I call her and ask her this question? Because it was just, you made a good point. And I think you had asked people about cold cases or something. And I think that's interesting. Like, can people...
Well, we can absolutely talk about that the next time, or you and I can talk privately. I've worked over 40 missing persons cases in the last 2 years. So
I'd like to bring that back and let you actually have the floor as the co-host, and you talk about it, because cold cases are an interesting thing, and they bring closure, but sometimes it's just fresh eyes on a case that needs to be solved. And it can't. Sometimes
Absolutely.
It can't. I'm not the investigator. I just know I watch TV on it. But I think those are the most make it. I was watching Forensic Files the other day, and I just was interested how 20 years later, technology was able to, in a fresh set of eyes on a case from an officer just rereading through things, was able to find closure for a family. So I think that's really important, because at the end of the day, we all need closure. I don't care if it's good or bad.
Absolutely, and that's what those families are looking for. And we have a lot of resources that we didn't have. A lot of times when cases were first discovered. So it's really interesting, and I'd be more than happy to come on and talk about it.
Yeah, no, we will. So I will text you after. We'll do it sometime later in the year after, as long as it's interfere with the marriage thing and for your daughter. But I'm going to send you my Instagram, but please have your daughter send me her information, because I belong to a lot of people who follow me around the world, and they're always looking. Okay. They love fashion and hair. I'm going to tell you, me. Oh my goodness, the men in their fashion and makeup, I'm just in awe of. I need them to stop. That's a whole other show, though. Stay out of my store. And
she, the salon she works at is actually in a casino, and so a lot of people travel through and stop in and have, and hire her to do their hair and makeup, and she's wonderful at both. So I will do that.
All right. Thank you, Christy, for coming on. This has been Rolling with the Diva. Sabrina Williams, I'm your host. We're talking about prison incarceration. Unfortunately, Oklahoma is the number one in the United States for prison incarceration, and the highest for women, as Christy said, for 25 years. We need to all step up, help, and also talk to our commission senators and hold them responsible, but also talk to our churches to see what we can do better. You guys have a great day. Be blessed. It's all about positive statements and how to see yourself in the light that you need to, and not be worrying about other people's opinion of yourself, because at the end of the day, your opinion of you is going to impact how you do your life. Yes, you want other people's feedback, but you need to just start not worrying about everybody's world of what you do and what you don't do, because at the end of the day, you are more than enough, and you can make your own decisions and be fabulous. If you're in need of any mental health counseling, call 211 in any state of the United States, and they will be able to help you. You guys have a great day. Peace out. Love you.